Australia is a fantastic country. But in the 30 years since I first arrived here from Canada, I've noted a distinct deterioration in the infrastructure that we enjoy. Through a lack of investment, a lack of foresight, our roads have become clogged, jammed, even the new ones. Our trains, our public transport system has become hopelessly unreliable. Now, less obvious, but more dire, is that same lack of investment in our social infrastructure. We have families sleeping in cars for lack of affordable housing, or condemned to a weekly cycle of checking in and out of cheap motels, maybe 5 people to a room. Our fragile elderly are parked in nursing homes that look older than they are sometimes, or they're like abandoned in some ward of a creaking public hospital. We have schools that are cobbled together out of demountables. We have jails and courthouses that are straight out of the Dickens era. And our young brain-injured people lie or sit in wheelchairs parked in the corners of nursing homes and left to rot. The demand for investment in social infrastructure is enormous. Not just to maintain and to renew the infrastructure that we have, our current stock, but because all of us are going to contribute to this tsunami of new demand as our population grows and ages and as our cities swell. We need a giant solution. Let me see if I can put a few numbers for you around some of these, around the 2 sectors that I know best, but around the need. In affordable housing, we have a great program right now around the country where we're going to build 50,000 new dwellings. That's going to cost about $15 billion, and it's not paid for yet. But in addition to the 50,000 new families that are going to get housed, we have 180,000 other families today who do not have access to appropriate housing. If we fail to do anything about that, it's projected that by the year 2023, that 180,000 families will turn into 430,000 households without appropriate housing. That's going to cost about 3 times what our current program costs. In aged care, we have about 200,000 beds that are occupied in facilities around Australia now. We need at least another 100,000 beds. And that's going to, over the next sort of 7 to 10 years, but we must start spending now because it takes that long to build them. That's going to cost about $20 billion. But even more urgent is that of the 200,000 beds that people are occupying right now, it's estimated that up to 50% are not fit for purpose. And they need to be renovated immediately. So that you can see that between these two sectors alone, forget about all the other ones we mentioned, we need about $100 billion in capital. And the question is, where's that going to come from? So these are sort of social sectors, and we talk a lot about philanthropy. Let's put some numbers around philanthropy. Foundations are specialist trust funds where people have donated money in order to do some kind of social good. Now, it's not really clear because the number's a bit fuzzy, but in Australia, we have about $5 billion housed in these trust funds, in these foundations designed for social good. We often hear a lot about individual philanthropy in Australia, and it's pretty significant. Last year, individuals in Australia claimed tax deductions for just over $2 billion worth of donations. Now, if you assume that much again, either wasn't deductible or for some reason wasn't claimed, and if you add a value for the countless hours of volunteering that goes on in the society, we get to an annual figure of about $5 billion. So that you can see how between these 2 sectors of philanthropy, we have about $10 billion available to do some good. Unfortunately, beside the need, it pales into insignificance. But there is a source of capital. There is a source of capital which I see as a sleeping giant, which if we were able to awaken and to harness, we could channel this capital into meeting virtually all of the social capital needs that we see around us. And it is the Australian superannuation funds management industry. It is enormous. Let me give you 4 takeaway points on this. It is almost $1.5 trillion in funds management right now. The second point is it's growing rapidly. Last year, it grew by $162 billion, 11%. Just to put that in perspective, that is 1.5 times all the capital requirements we just talked about for all of the affordable housing and all of the aged care in Australia for the next 10 years. Not unachievable. The third takeaway point for you is that it is actually quite concentrated in its control. Only less than 400 funds that make up this total have more than $50 million each. So a relatively few number of people control these vast resources of $1.5 trillion. If we're going to make serious social change in Australia, if we're going to really move the dial, we're going to have to find a way to wake this sleeping giant up and actually make it do some good. We're going to have to allocate some of this capital into the social need that we see around us. Now, this is not a new problem, and we see around the world that there have been initiatives around how do we get this capital brought away across. The United Nations recently put out a set of principles around responsible investment. And responsible investment is a methodology that values the social impact in the same way it values the financial impact of an investment. Unfortunately, in Australia, that movement is just really in its infancy, and the largest of the offerings available for them to invest in is around $1.5 billion. Recently, I had a chance to talk to about 24 of the leaders of these major funds. And after we had pitched the return profile and the risk profile of this particular investment, we asked each one of them, did it make any difference to them if they chose to invest, that the funds that we were raising would ultimately go into a great social outcome? And to a person, they said, nope, it is not my problem to fix Australia's social ills. My responsibility is to invest my members' funds, my members' savings, in a responsible manner according to their preferences. You see, by law, trustees are required to achieve acceptable returns for taking on acceptable risk. So we have a problem now. We've got this gulf between the need that we see around us, which is so obvious day by day, and this enormous pool of supply that we have, which could potentially be appropriate. So the question is, can we bridge this gulf? Can we cross over? Are we able to bring the capital across and allocate it? And I think the answer is yes. But it's going to take 3 distinct groups working together to achieve this. The first is a group of intermediaries. These are organizations and individuals who understand the social need. They speak the sector's language. They also understand government priorities and government processes. And then they also understand that they have to generate an investment product which meets the acceptable returns for acceptable risks profiles, just to meet the hurdles in order to get this funds allocated. The second group is government, and we're going to ask them to do 3 things for us. The first is to make clear social policy and then not change it. Change means risk for an investment point of view. The second thing we're going to ask them to do is to put a little bit of pressure on the people who manage these super funds, just to remind them that they enjoy a social mandate, a government mandate. This is where their funds come from. Our 9% superannuation contribution levy is about to go to 12%. And maybe the government could make that additional 1/3 growth rate conditional on seeing some progress in this area of social investment. The third thing we're going to ask the government to do is to work with the intermediaries so that we can create investment product using government's money to stimulate and to effectively prime the pump so that enormous amounts of capital can be attracted out of the super fund and into social infrastructure. Now, the third group of people who need to work, we have intermediaries and government. The third group of people that we are going to have to work and harness to get this to happen is you. This is actually your money. These people are required to invest your money according to your preferences. And if each one of you and everybody who sees this talk writes to the super fund manager that they have demanding a responsible investment option, then we're going to see this ripple effect where one by one and piece by piece and fund by fund, enormous capital will ultimately flow into good social outcomes. You can demand, we can demand, that our funds are invested for our benefit, not just in 10 years or 40 years' time, but actually to meet the need that we see around us today. The law of large numbers says that if enough people repeat the same experiment again and again, the outcome becomes highly predictable. Well, I predict that if enough people write to their super fund manager demanding a responsible investment option, then we can and we will wake this giant. Thank you.